Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. I'm a parent educator, and my mission is to help children by helping parents. The motto of this podcast is raising our children, growing ourselves. Today, why keeping a secret can do more harm than good. When I first heard about my guest's book, I was immediately wildly interested. Secrets. We love them, and we all got them. Some secrets hurt and others don't, and not all secrets are alike. But did you know that an average person has 13 of them and that there are 38 categories of secrets? But what exactly is a secret? Is it still a secret if you told no one or if you shared it with one person? What are the 3 dimensions of a secret? Turns out that there are emotional and physical costs to keeping secrets. My guest today is Michael Slepian. He is the Stanford C. Bernstein & Co. Associate Professor of Leadership and Ethics at Columbia University, a recipient of the Rising Star Award from the Association for Psychological Science. He is the leading expert on the psychology of secrets. Michael has authored more than 50 articles on secrecy, truth, and deception. His research has been covered by the New York Times, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, The Economist, The Wall Street Journal, the BBC, NPR, and more. And if you're listening in real time, this week is the release of his book, The Secret Life of Secrets. In this episode, we talked about the difference between secrets and privacy. When do secrets hurt most? Age and development. Can babies keep secrets? Or when do children's first efforts at keeping secrets emerge? Can people tell if we are keeping a secret? To confess or not to confess? What are the consequences of confiding? Is there a value of sharing our secrets? And hint, hint, there is. And does the person whom we choose to share our secret with matter? And so much more. In addition to sharing some amazing stories, Michael did talk about his family's dark secret. Who knew there was so much to discover about secrets? They truly do have a secret life of their own. I learned that there is still more to be researched and studied when it comes to secrets, and that there is pretty interesting emerging research on positive secrets, for example. I truly enjoyed this fun, light, and enlightening conversation with Michael Slepian. I hope you enjoy it too. And if you want to share your secrets with me, you can find my contact info in the show notes. Just kidding. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I am so interested in this topic, wildly interested for various reasons. But first, I want to ask you, what is a secret, right? Not everything is a secret that we don't share or hide, or it's a piece of information. I think it would be good to identify what the secret is.
Yes, definitely. So what distinguishes a secret from other things about you that other people do not know is an intention to hold that information back from one or more people. So there's certain things about you that other people don't know, but it's not because they're secret. It might be just because these things are private or not the kind of thing we tend to talk about. Money, for example. But if you specifically intend to hold the information back from one or more people, even if you talk about it with someone else, then it counts as a secret.
I see. So I have a secret that I have never shared with anyone. So that's a really big secret, I'm assuming then. Okay. It turned out, reading your book, I am fascinated that, secrets are common, number one, and they fall into certain amount of categories, and an average person has 13 secrets. And you in the book provide a list of 38 secrets. And I'm like, wow, I was so scared to go through the list because I identified a bunch from the list. So tell me about the discovery, about the commonness, and that our secrets are not so unique, Was that surprising for you to discover?
When we first started doing this research, I realized that we actually know almost nothing about secrecy when I first started this research. And the reason we didn't know much about it, according to me, is that most of the studies on secrecy essentially would create a secrecy situation in the lab. Instead of asking, for example, what does it look like to have a secret in day-to-day life? What are the secrets people keep in day-to-day life and how many? And so we were asking very basic questions at the beginning of this research. And so to get started, we asked a couple thousand people, what is the secret you're currently keeping? And we looked at those couple thousand responses and looked at the themes that emerged and came up with a list of 38 categories of secrets that we felt really comprehensively captured what people keep secret. A group of participants, this list, we see 97% of the time they have at least one secret from the list. And the average person, as you mentioned, has 13 secrets from that list.
Wow. Yeah, that was very surprising for me, very shocking. Of course, some of the categories I could predict. What would people have secrets about? As a therapist, I've heard many of those secrets myself. I'm wondering if you don't mind, I can read a few of the things that people keep as secrets, because the listener is probably curious. Hurt another person emotionally or physically, illegal drug use, habit or addiction, but not involving drugs, theft, any kind of taking without asking, something illegal, physical self-harm, abortion, traumatic experience, a lie, a violation of someone's trust, romantic desire, romantic discontent, being unhappy in a relationship. This is so huge. Extra relational thoughts about having relations with another person while in a relationship. This is pretty common these days too. Emotional infidelity, of course, sexual infidelity, physical discontent, mental health struggles, and on and on. I think these are human conditions. A lot involves infidelity and sexual behaviors. And there were 3 categories, right? Moral, relational, and professional, as I understood from the book. The map.
Yeah.
That was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing the map exercise. I don't know what I'm asking here, but
yeah, So there's these common things that people keep secret, and they're exactly what you think people would keep secret. And we show that one way to understand the space of secrecy is sort of the dimensions that run through it. People readily say that secrets differ from each other, or we can think about our secrets in 3 different ways, whether they're moral, whether they're emotional and related to our social connections and relationships, and whether they're goal-oriented, which often means in our professions. And each of those dimensions of secrets have sort of unique experiences attached to them.
Yeah. Also was fascinating reading the chapter about children of different ages and development and how secrecy evolves. So having a teenager now, I had a conversation not long ago with another human and my daughter made a statement like this. Oh, I don't have any secrets from my mom. I said, no, I think you should have secrets, and it's okay to have some secrets from your mom. And she said, I do. And so I'm wondering if you can speak about that. When do children start understanding the notion of secrets? When do they keep them? And just development and secrecy.
Yes, there's some good research on both children and even chimpanzees, but we can forget about them for now, on how they represent other minds. The idea being that to keep a secret, or to intend to keep a secret from other people, means you have some understanding that there's something in your head that other people are not aware of until you tell them or until they learn somehow. And therefore, you can keep it that way. That kind of secrecy is the kind of secrets we were just talking about and requires being able to think about another's mind and what it knows and what it doesn't know. And so children develop that ability to think about others' beliefs and to understand when others hold a belief that is not true, even though the child knows and the other person doesn't. They seem to have a pretty good understanding of what other minds can be aware of or not at age 4. And so it's around this time that they can start having a kind of competent sense of what it means to keep a secret and how to keep a secret. Children at that age, because they're not toilet trained yet, are often keeping things like wetting the bed or their pants secret. And essentially, as they get older, their secrets in some ways start to resemble the kinds of secrets we keep today, where, a very common reason to use this secrecy is to try to avoid getting in trouble. You drew on the wall and then you were like, oh, wait, that was a bad idea. But where it really starts to change in an important and meaningful way, which you were just highlighting, is adolescence. And why things get so different then. So sort of what happens between, I just jumped from year 4 to like year 13. Things that happen along the way are, children get a better understanding of secrets and they have more effective ways of keeping them, how to, more believable cover stories and the like. But childhood secrets about childhood-sized indiscretions don't seem to typically take much of a toll. Where secrets start to really we see burden when it comes to secrets in children is when they start reaching adolescence. Different about this new phase of life is, number one, teens can get into more trouble than younger children. And so their secrets can be bigger, but also at the same time, they're becoming their own person. And they're sort of finding an identity that isn't entirely enveloped in family. And they're trying to sort of step outside that family and sort of forge their own identity. And so very naturally, as part of that process, children might start to think carefully about what information they tell their parents. Teenagers, as will come to no surprise for anyone who's parenting them or was once a teenager, start thinking about what rules they agree with and which ones they see as sort of not fair or not just, thinking that they should have some control over things like personal taste, clothing choices, hairstyle choices. And the question then becomes, at what point is sort of their inner thoughts and their prior experiences, what do they deem sort of private and personal and not needing to be relayed to their parents? And so, there's a line at which not telling your parents about your day is not secrecy, but if something really bad happened that day and you don't tell them, now we're potentially at secrecy.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about then privacy versus secrecy, right? I mean, we are entitled to privacy, even our kids. And so,
and I think this kind of coincides with this shift we're talking about, where the notion of having privacy comes out over the years, and it's really clear by the time kids are teenagers, right, that they want some privacy. And what we consider privacy is the kinds of things that you would tell other people about, but only people you're very close to or only in the right situation. The reason people don't know about it is not because you intend to keep it from those other people. So, for example, romantic thoughts, right? That could be something that teenagers see as personal and private. It's not that they're keeping the existence of having romantic thoughts secret, but they're just only sharing that information with people they think are the right people to talk to. And that's often not their parents, right? It's their friends. But as soon as the reason that your parents or your friends don't know this thing about you is because you intend to keep it that way, that's when we see secrecy. And so this distinction, or this notion that one would have privacy, emerges in adolescence, but at the same time as having more serious secrets to keep.
Yeah, going back to the younger kids, age 4 or 3, right, when this moral development happens sort of, and when they first start to keep secrets, like I didn't draw on the wall or I didn't spill this, clearly we know that they did. And what I want to say is, oftentimes parents say, my child is lying to me. They clearly used my lipstick and drew on the mirror, or they colored it. Who else is going to do? And parents take it very, very personally, seriously, and they view it as a lie. But what I would love for them to see is that it's part of their brain development, their moral development, that it's part of development that they say this kinds of stuff. It's not that they're lying to you. I want them to see this as a developmental milestone and not frame it as lie and sort of come at your kid from that angle, but delight in that your child reached this milestone and they can use their mind to come up with the secret, even though it's not a secret, right? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think it's a good way of framing it where, what we're thinking about here is that children are learning about their minds and how they can contain information that is different from their parents' minds. And so maybe the situation is you ate the cookie and your parents weren't there when you were eating it. And so therefore they shouldn't know about it. It just so happens that when children are first figuring these things out, they're not very good at keeping secrets. And so they'll just say, no, it wasn't me, even though it's really obvious it was them. Or they say, no, I didn't eat the cookies, even though there's cookie crumbs on their lips. Or like, no, I didn't get into the makeup, even with makeup on their face, right? And so they're getting this new understanding that what's in their mind is not necessarily in others' minds or in their parents' minds. It takes some more competence to sort of more effectively think about what is the right thing to say to keep a secret. But you're right, it's a milestone, and the deception really is very trivial in these examples we're talking about it. It's just the only way they can think of to try to keep a secret at that moment in time.
Yeah. So what are the costs of keeping a secret? What are the emotional and physical costs of keeping a secret, which I was surprised to discover that there are physical costs to keeping a secret as well?
Yeah, for a very long time, people used to think that what was harmful about secrecy is this moment of hiding, that it's just so difficult or stressful seeing, that this is what erodes our health. But what we've learned more recently, when we look at the actual secrets people keep in their daily lives, and when we look to real world secrets, it turns out that concealing them in social interaction, that is hiding them in conversation, is kind of the easy part. It's not so technically difficult to keep a secret. We're well past the years of 4-year-olds just saying no. It's not so hard to keep a secret in conversation in most of the cases. But what people aren't prepared for is how often their mind returns to the secret outside those social interactions. And it turns out it's the more our mind simply returns to the secret when we're not talking about the secret, when we're not with anyone, when we're just in our own heads, that seems to be where actually the harms begin. It's not the more frequently people conceal their secrets in conversation, it's the more frequently they think about those secrets just in general that is related to their lower well-being.
Yes. Is there a way that you can completely forget about a secret? I guess what I want to know is, does time play a role if a secret is a new occurrence, a new behavior, a new act of sort that weighs down on you more heavily? But as time goes by, let's say I have a secret from maybe when I was 25 years old, but my mind doesn't go to it as frequently. But a more recent secret, sometimes a music or a conversation with another person, a movie or something like that, can evoke, your secret, and that can weigh down. Does time play a role?
It does, but there's actually so little research on it. We've only run a study or two on this. This is sort of a very new idea and when it comes to the research on secrecy, believe it or not. And so you highlighted exactly the issue. The way that I believe that it usually works is that time can make it easier, but only in this situation that you just were imagining, where it's just no longer relevant to our life. Like life has just moved on multiple times beyond this point, where if it's just something from what feels like a former life, that's not a secret that's very hard to keep because nothing reminds you of it. It's just so far away. Now, if there's a secret you've kept for a long time, but it's as relevant to your life as it ever was, that could be a secret that's even more burdensome. This is something that you're still keeping secret and it's relevant to your day to day. It can sort of accumulate the burden in that sense. But I think normally you're right that with time, in a lot of instances, we get some distance from that secret, which makes it easier to not get reminded of the secret.
I guess it also, I'm thinking about like what kinds of secrets can weigh down something, a moral thing that you did, I guess. I'm thinking of this example from your book of that 60-something-year-old woman who, when she was young, killed her baby. Why don't you tell that story? It was so moving, and I got goosebumps reading that story. For 52 years, she kept that secret, and then she revealed it.
So what's happening here in this story is there's this woman who's given birth to a child. She's 15 years old. And so obviously that's a challenging situation in the best of circumstances. But in this particular instance, there were other really challenging family considerations happening at home with a parent ill and another parent in a hospital recovering for surgery and so on. And just a difficult time. And there's this evening, just a few days after this child is born, where the baby won't stop crying and it's crying and it's crying and everyone's trying to get some sleep. Someone has a job interview the next morning. Remember, there's an ill parent at home, and the mother, this 15-year-old mother, is just like, this crying has to stop. How can I stop it? And she thinks, well, maybe if I just muffled its voice just for a moment, that could make it stop crying. And so she tried that. And then she had held the pillow there for too long. She had inadvertently killed her child. And so what had happened is she had told the police that she had accidentally rolled onto the child. And that's how the child died. And that's essentially what got written in the record, the official, record of the incident. And then she held that secret for 52 years. And you have to think, in some ways, 52 years later, I mean, I can't even imagine what that amount of time period, because I haven't had that amount of time ever pass. But it's just hard to imagine that in some ways that the secret would still be relevant to what we were just talking about. And so you could imagine in some ways that secret kind of fades away. But that's certainly not what happens in all instances. I mean, this is what we were just talking about. Sometimes with time, a secret can get harder. And 52 years after this thing happened, she eventually confessed it to a police officer, which meant she had to go to court over this issue. And there was no technical need, right? At this point, it just happened so long ago. What would you gain by coming forward, especially at your own legal peril? She could have served jail time. In interviews, she said, I just couldn't take the pain any longer. Pain of being alone with this thought. And that's why secrecy is often so harmful. It's not because of the hard work we have to put into holding it back in conversation. It's because you have to live with the secret alone in your thoughts. And that was what was so difficult about the secret, just being alone with it.
Yeah. Well, it was very moving to read that story for sure. And she didn't serve jail time. The judge was kind enough and compassionate enough to recognize that. I mean, imagine if it was a different judge. Do you know if she had other children as a woman in her life after that incident?
Yes, she did.
Oh, wow. I mean, imagine becoming a parent again. And it's probably she was haunted. There are secrets and there are secrets. I guess the nature of the secret is important. Why do people conceal their secrets, do you think?
In some cases, it's just for the simple fact that they think their reputation will get worse if this information comes out, or someone will think worse of them. But then there's other reasons, and it can get murky pretty quickly, which is, well, I'm trying to protect this person. I'm trying to protect this person's feelings. That at first sounds quite reasonable until we get to the extremes. Cheated on this person. And if you were to reveal it, it would destroy the relationship. Do you do it? And so sort of the distinction between protecting yourself and protecting others, that line, I think, can get blurry. But that's what it is, I think, across the board. You're trying to protect something.
Mm. And I think I'm not in favor of like radical honesty. especially in relationships or in life in general. There's this whole movement, there's a book. I think it's insane. Sometimes, yes, you may want to reveal or share your secret because you can't bear to be alone with it, or it's harmful for you, or it's too much. But what is the effect on other people? I think we also need to consider other people, right? So I'm not in favor of complete radical honesty, even though after reading your book, I understand why sharing secrets, talking about it is helpful, right? But is there room for holding a secret, keeping a secret? I want to know. What do you think?
I think there's sort of two answers to that question, sort of two different versions of yes. Yes, it's okay to hold a truth back is when doing so isn't on a very serious issue and when you're just doing it to be nice. If you and your friend have arrived at a party and your friend asks you about their outfit and you think it's bad, like it's too late to say anything bad. You're already at the party. It would only serve to make things worse for no good reason to be 100% honest in that situation. And so, some people might call that a white lie. Essentially, when you're just being nice and there's no reason to hurt feelings unnecessarily, I think that's a totally justifiable situation where you're holding the truth back. Now, what if it's like a secret about you? I think there are certain secrets that you have the right to keep. I think there's certain secrets that if you have a romantic partner that they deserve to know. I think, of course, it depends on, but if it's something about you and it's not harming any person at all to hold this information back, I think that's a secret that is totally yours to keep.
Yeah. No, I was particularly thinking of secret that can harm a person or a relationship. I think doing so, revealing so that you can feel, I'm thinking of a couple that I used to work with. Doing so, it can be very harmful and selfish. You're just relieving yourself. Okay, great. But now the other person has to live with the emotional consequences of this. How about carrying other people's secrets, holding other people's secrets? A friend of mine has shared a secret with me, and it's a really big secret. And it's very uncomfortable that I'm the only one who knows this. And there is some circumstances involved around this, why I'm the only one who knows this secret. But it's unpleasant to know this secret. Like, I don't want to know this secret, but I do. I can't delete it from my mind. What can you say about holding other people's secrets?
Yeah, so holding other people's secrets, just as your example goes, it can be difficult. It can be partly difficult when you feel like you have to now conceal this secret on the other person's behalf. So we find that people find knowing another person's secret more burdensome to the extent that you have overlapping social networks, you have the same friends. But even if you don't have to hide the secret back in conversation, it can be burdensome to just have no one else to talk to about this thing besides the person who told you. That can be like really frustrating. And so when someone reveals a secret to you in cases like these, it can become a burden for you now too. At the same time, when someone shares a secret with you, especially something that they wouldn't just tell anybody, people understand that as an act of intimacy, and it can bring you closer together, and you can feel glad that someone felt comfortable telling this thing to you, even if you wish you rather didn't know it, because now it's a secret that you have to keep.
True. Yeah. At the time when she shared this secret, I felt very privileged that I'm the only one to know this. And at times it does feel that we share this common little mischievous thing, and we can talk with code language sometimes amongst people. I am Armenian. So in my cultural history, that there is a saying, I was trying to remember the exact saying. I think it's about secrets. If you have a secret, don't tell anyone. Go tell to the running water. And I know culture plays a big role, right, in how we approach secrets, hold them, share them, keep them. If you have a secret, go tell to the running water, as if the water will take it with it, and everything will be forgotten, and you'll be free, and that's about it. I was talking to a friend, and I was about to reveal a secret, and he said, "No, please, don't even dare. That's a secret," because I told what it was about generally. He said, "Don't even tell to the running water. That's a secret to be locked forever." So what can you say about cultural approaches to secrets?
Again, we're sort of just at the edge of the research and what we know and what we don't know here. And so I have conducted some research on the role of culture in secrecy. And so what we have been finding so far is essentially there's two different cultural factors we've been considering. One is this sense of collectivism, which is sort of an often spoke about cultural value, sort of value for group harmony and group cohesion, and sort of putting the group first before the self. And for that one, what we see is essentially, and we're still learning why, but to the extent you sort of put the group before yourself, when you keep a secret, which presumably means from the group, intuitively, sort of my individualist way of thinking is that like, you're not doing anything wrong. And, kind of what we were just talking about, you should have the right to keep the secrets you want to keep. But when people have a more collectivistic view of social relationships, they seem to feel more guilty when it comes to keeping a secret. Another cultural factor we've looked at is sort of whether a social network is tight-knit or not. And in more tight-knit social networks, you have sort of fewer options for who your friends are and your romantic partners are. And in instances like that, people, it turns out, disclose less and keep more secrets, but they don't feel more guilty for keeping those secrets. So we're just at the forefront of what we know about this. We're just starting to understand it. What I can tell you with more certainty is that the categories of secrets that you were reading earlier, it turns out that those are not just secrets that Americans keep, which is sort of what I was studying for the first 9 years of this research. Now we're looking at people across the world, and we see actually people on average are kind of keeping the same secrets in other countries, and the same number of secrets for the most part. These categories of secrets seem more universal than I perhaps would have expected.
Yeah, now after reading this book, every time I converse with a friend or have an encounter with someone, I'm like, I wonder what kind of secrets they're holding in their mind. I know there must be 13. It makes you wonder about people in a certain way. You talk about this interesting public experiment that was conducted in New York, the secret telephone. Can you talk about that and how it went, and what sorts of interesting things did you discover? So the history of this project is that I happened to randomly meet this person in the subway who runs this sort of art project, or is the creator of this art project that he calls Subway Therapy. And the original version of this was providing people sticky notes and to write on, to sort of write something on and to put it on the wall of the subway. So we're all underground. This first happens when this becomes a major thing is the 2016 election. And it just becomes this huge thing where people, it's this moment when the nation never felt as divided as before. Of course, it feels more divided even still than today, but still people were using this space to sort of pour out emotions and sort of like make pitches for solidarity. And it was just so moving to see it all at once. We're talking about thousands of these Post-its where each one is this individual message. And so I walked past a version of that one day in the subway and started speaking to the guy who seemed to be running it. And it turns out that was the guy behind it. And it turns out that he's been long interested in sort of helping people express thoughts and feelings in his art. He considers these as art pieces. And so we started thinking about essentially the same idea, but instead of writing sort of
emotions or thoughts, instead of writing secrets, which he also tried one time on Post-its and post them to the wall, instead of writing them down, speaking into a phone. And so we put up in a park, in different parks in New York City, a phone. And if you stumbled across it, you would read a banner that said secret telephone, get something off your chest. And if you picked up the receiver, you could listen to secrets that people had previously recorded on the phone.
Juicy stuff. I wish I participated.
And you could leave a recording of your own.
Wow.
And so the first thing that was surprising about that project was that people soon were lining up to share their secrets. We thought, will anyone even touch this thing? And people really were ready to reveal their secrets to that phone, far more ready than I would have expected.
Wow. It's so cool. I love public forms of art like this. There's a woman, I can't remember her last name. Her first name is Candy. I have heard her speak at the conference. She created this public wall. Again, it starts with the question, before I die, and people come and add their own comments. And I think there are thousands of those walls around the world now. I'm always amazed by those kinds of public art things, and how people are eager to participate and hungry for such thing. Even in my town in Princeton, there is a small coffee shop called Small World Coffee. And inside they have a big wall. I was there today, and there are Post-it notes. You can write your own, what kind thing you did today of this nature. I forgot the exact prompt. And, we were reading with my daughter. I just love this. And when I was reading, did you use, how many people participate? Was it for fun, or did you use that for the research? And what kinds of secrets or outrageous secrets people said, or was it similar types of secrets?
So yes, it was similar types of secrets than the list you previously read, but far richer in detail than I think any sort of example can, saying like childhood experiences is one thing, but like hearing what it is another. So it's surprising how open people are. Someone described that they were cheating, but not just that they're cheating, but they're trying to stop, but they've also been cheating on their partner for 4 years. And that just provides so much more color than checking a box that says, infidelity. I have a secret about infidelity. And so there's this much more human side to the recordings. What do we do with that for research? That's an ongoing conversation. We don't have anything beyond the recordings at this stage. We haven't surveyed the participants or asked them these follow-up questions, which you would need to do to do some kind of research on the outcomes or predict how people share or who people, the content of the secrets or anything like that. But still, we have this amazingly rich body of audio recordings.
Audio is very powerful because, like you said, if you write something down, yes, I did this, it's just very simple, minimal. But when you give an, opportunity via audio, it's very intimate. You open up, there's the anonymity factor. No one can see you. It's not a video. And you can hear the person's voice and all the little elements and the intonation, right? How emotional they are and what they're saying. We can do this research on my podcast. We can ask people to send us their secrets to the number that I have for the podcast. No, I'm kidding. Even though I would love to know my listeners' secrets, but I'm guessing they all fall into the 38 categories. It's not that exciting. Can people tell that we are keeping a secret, especially like in an intimate relationship, right? Of course, publicly, it's kind of hard if we're all walking, holding secrets. But is it possible to know that your partner is keeping a secret?
Yes and no. And so let's go with the no first. So the times when they can't know or don't know is, at the end of the day, people can't read your thoughts. Maybe you are expressing your thoughts with your actions or your words or your facial expressions, but they can't literally peer into your mind and listen to what it's saying in there. And so when a secret is a piece of information that there's just no world in which it could be discovered through other means than you specifically revealing it, that kind of secret is pretty hard to keep. I should say that kind of secret is pretty hard to see. It may be hard to keep for other reasons, but it's not because of the challenges of maintaining the secret in conversation. And so that's why if you look at studies where they bring two strangers into a room, often the finding is the one stranger can't tell that the other stranger is lying. That is, it's at totally chance. So we can't tell when strangers are lying. And so for the same reason why someone can't know exactly what you're thinking. But when someone really knows you very well, this is where the yes comes in. If someone really knows you well, and if what it means to be keeping a secret from this person is that in order to keep a secret from someone you see like every day about something that's relevant to the relationship, is you might have to avoid bringing up that topic. And if that topic of conversation that relates to your secret ever gets brought into conversation, you'll have to sort of shift and pivot and try to, not engage with that. And that's a pretty effective way to keep the secret from coming out in conversation. But if there's a pattern to the conversations you're avoiding, your partner's likely to figure that out at some point. And so when it's something directly relevant to the relationship, and if that means to keep it, you have to not engage in a certain topic of conversation, you run the risk of eventually being found out. Also, if there's something bothering you that's on your mind a lot and you're not talking about it, your partner may be able to tell, which is usually what you want, but not, I guess, if you're trying to keep a particular secret. And so there's limits. In a lot of cases, it can't be seen, but if it's changing your behavior in a notable way, your partner could be able to tell that something's up.
Yeah, unless it's a secret that involves some kind of evidence, then you have to hide the evidence, or they can find the evidence, right? And then they can question. I think, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. It was interesting to read the story about Edward Snowden. And it was kind of funny when he was taking the old computer, with the files, a colleague of his stops him in the hallway and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Stealing secrets." So he laughed about it basically and told the truth basically, but they didn't believe him.
Yeah, it's sometimes the best way to keep a secret is to just say something that doesn't sound like you're actually telling the truth. And that really worked for him. And I have to say, I've used that in my own life too. Just said like, "Oh no, this is what it looks like is what it looks like," even though as a joke, but it can work if you can get the delivery right.
Hey, are you enjoying this conversation? Do you love the podcast and find it helpful? Show your support. It means a lot. There are a few ways you can do that. Number one, you can take a screenshot right now and share this episode on your social media. If it's on Instagram, remember to tag me, Authentic Parenting Podcast, and I will reshare your post or story. Number two, take a second to quickly rate the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and write a brief review telling why you love the show. Number three, become a patron on patreon.com and join our 19 existing active members who believe and support the work of authentic parenting. Patreon is a place where podcasters, creators, and artists get support from their fans. Your contribution makes a difference. When you become a patron at any level, I'll send you a handwritten thank you card with some awesome authentic parenting merch. You'll be part of the special insider circle and get other benefits as well. Great discounts on my services and offerings, extra content, and exclusive access to me. You can stop your contribution at any time. A lot goes into the production of the podcast, and I truly need your help. Our monthly goal is $500. Currently, we are at $103. Head over to patreon.com/authentic parenting and join other big-hearted and generous listeners from around the world. It's not the amount that matters. It's the fact that you give that matters. After all, I created this podcast and built our community from the value of giving. If Patreon is not for you, one-time donations via PayPal are an option too. Find the link in your show notes. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being part of our global, diverse, and strong community. Your support truly matters, and I am very grateful for it. Now, let's get back to the show. Yeah, I mean, with this genetic testing stuff now, it's so popular. So many people are discovering secrets, family secrets. There are so many books have been written and all of that. And you yourself tell your own story. Are you willing to talk about it on the podcast just a little bit?
I am.
Okay.
So it's this story begins the book as well. So that's part of why I've asked you to do so.
That's not why you were doing the research on secrecy, because you knew there was some dark secret about your family, even though that there is no coincidences, right? It's like so interesting to find that here is this guy who is researching secrets. He discovers a big secret about his life.
Exactly. So at this point, I had already been studying secrecy for maybe 2 years or so. And I had just given a presentation about my research on secrecy to Columbia, where I was interviewing for a job. And this is 2013. This is happening. And so on that interview, it went pretty well. They hired me, but we went to dinner after the interview, and then we went for drinks after the dinner. And so I was having a good time with these new folks. And around midnight, I'm getting a call from my dad, which is kind of unusual, especially for how late it was. And he called me twice, and so it really seemed to indicate he had something urgent to tell me. And so after we finished those drinks and I go back to my hotel room, I finally call him after this really long day of interviewing. And he says, like, "Hi, Michael, I need to tell you something. Can you sit down?" Which, that's always cause for concern. And then he goes on to tell me, I am not biologically able to have children. He's telling me that he's not my biological father. And of course, that's incredibly surprising. And I raced through a bunch of thoughts really quickly. And one of the first things I thought was like, this is okay. I thought about the people who I'm really close to, like really close friends. And I'm like, well, those relationships aren't based on genetics. Why should that have any relevance to parents and family? Think about uncles and aunts, how one's by marriage, like it doesn't make you any less connected to the one you're not genetically related to. So I immediately told my father, like, number one, this is incredibly surprising, but it's also fine. It's okay. But why are you telling me this? And why now? It just was so hard to understand how they had kept that secret for so long. And as I learned more about it, I learned that their intention was never to tell anyone. Never to tell me and my brother. They, in fact, did talk about it with other people. In fact, our entire family knew, apart from my brother and me. So we're the only two people who don't know this secret that's keeping.
I think, cruel. I think that part is cruel. If it involves you, and if it's a birth story related, I feel like, wow, this is not that fair. And so your father knew too, or he just discovered himself too later?
No. They knew it from the beginning. And so I in fact asked my mom later, much later actually, when did you start considering revealing the secret? Was it, shortly after I was born or shortly after my younger brother was born? At one point, did you decide you were never going to tell your kids about this? And she told me they decided before we were ever born. And this is why...
Premeditated. That is premeditated. Yeah.
And this is why it's so important in my research that we define secrecy as an intention. As in, the moment you intend to keep something a secret is the moment you have a secret. And that secret can affect you well before you ever have the chance to hide it. And this is why it's having a secret on your mind can be so harmful, even if you don't have to conceal the secret. And so my parents very rarely had to conceal that secret. We were not talking about genetics. That would be weird. And so it wasn't a secret that was hard to hold back in conversation, but it became a secret that became more difficult to live with as we got older.
I'm wondering, was it difficult for your dad or for your mom or both? Whose initiative was it to share? Did your dad tell your mom that I'm going to tell Michael, or he did it on his own? Do you know?
So what happened, I do. What happened is that the reason why they were calling me, or my dad was calling me after midnight that night, is that my brother learned just a couple of days before, maybe 2 days before.
Is he younger than you?
He's younger. And so he learns this, and once he learns it, obviously they have to tell me too. But they knew I had this job interview, and so we have to wait until the interview was over. And I'm so glad they did that. It was so the right thing to do, because that would have been so incredibly distracting. But could they have waited till the next morning? Probably, maybe. And the way my brother found out is my mom essentially let a clue to it slip in conversation, and my brother sort of noticed it and kept pushing until he got the answer.
And all along, they knew that you were doing this research on secrets, right? Your parents were aware of it?
So my mom will say today that it eventually slipped in a phone call, or that a clue to it slipped, which then led her to reveal it. She believes that's evidence for she was ready to reveal it. She didn't want to keep it secret. And I asked her, when did you become less sure about keeping this secret? When did you start thinking that maybe we should know? And she told me it was my research.
Wow, that's so powerful.
She was reading, my initial papers on secrecy and realized, she said, wow, I think this is not a good thing. I have to tell them.
Wow. It's so touching, that part. I'm so moved by that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I know so many people, because this genetic testing is available, right? So many people are discovering secrets like this. And it sounds like you're taking it, I'm not sure, at least it appears that it's not as distractive as someone I know, for example. For them, it was like their whole world shattered, that they learned that, this fact about their parent and that existence of a half sibling and things like that. And they're unable to forgive their parents, their relatives who knew. So was it like that for you too, or no?
I was weirdly calm about it. And my younger brother, maybe because he's a different person or maybe because he was younger, had a reaction that resembled what you were just talking about. Just feeling like the ground shifting underneath your feet. I was so calm about it that my brother didn't believe in it when I was like, well, I'm really okay with this. And I think he found that hard to believe. He thought I was not being truthful. But no, I just quickly thought to myself, who are the people I'm closest to? Close to my parents, but I'm much closer to my friends and, my best friends. And I'm like, well, those friendships are not based in genetics. What does it matter about family relationships being based in genetics either? It in fact made my relationships with my father's parents, those two grandparents, much more deeper to understand that they weren't based in any kind of like genetic obligation, that like these are two people who accepted these children as their grandchildren as if they were genetically related to us. And I think that just is kind of powerful. And it actually deepened relationships rather than making me question them.
Wow, very powerful, because you're coming from a different angle. Most people, the people that I talk to, they feel betrayed, right? They feel that they deserve to know and all those kind of things. Very powerful story. And I'm glad you shared it in a book and on the podcast. So you said earlier that sharing our secrets is helpful and beneficial. I'm wondering if we can just, as we approach the end of this conversation, why is it beneficial and with whom we can share our secrets with? Does the person matter? Like the secret telephone tells me, like we're eager to share, but I think it's harder to share with intimate, close people. Is it easier to share secrets with strangers or with people that we know, first of all?
So I think it could be difficult to reveal a secret to anyone if you've never talked about it, right? And so that's kind of what makes the secret telephone intriguing or appealing, you can say something on the phone that you would never say to a single person face to face, right? When it comes to a secret that's bothering you, though, that's weighing on your mind, that's usually a sign that you do need to do something. And talking to someone is a really good way to work on that situation. And you don't have to reveal the secret to the person you're keeping it from. But if you speak to a third party, what I can tell you is that it's the most typical reaction to revealing a secret that you're struggling with to a third party is a positive reaction. The most common reaction is something that people find helpful, whether it's just saying, that sucks, or I'm here for you, or that must be so difficult, or giving guidance or advice. There's so many things another person can give you. A simple conversation can make such a world of difference. And that's something you can't get when you just write in a journal or when you interact with the secret telephone. You really,
I see. So the feedback from another person, that matters, that insight that you generate, that matters, not just the act of sharing.
Exactly. And so
otherwise you can tell it to the water.
Right. And so if you're not telling it if you're talking to a person who can give you feedback, who should that person be? From what you were just saying, you can imagine for you, it might be like, it could be a stranger, because a stranger could give you useful advice too, or share a similar experience. For some people, they would never want to speak to a stranger about something personal. And so they would rather talk to someone that they're close to. It really, as long as you feel like they can keep your secrets safe and you think they'll respond more helpfully than not, it's going to pay off. And it's going to pay off because you'll choose your person carefully. Things that make people effective confidants we see in our research are compassion, someone who will be non-judgmental, or someone who will express empathy and just hear you out, but also assertiveness, someone who will push you to do the thing you need to do. The other thing to make sure when you're choosing who to confide in is that they have a similar set of morals as you. If this person's going to be scandalized by your secret, talk to someone else, because it's not going to help.
Yeah, you have to choose your person carefully because they can share it, they can publicize it, they can violate your trust. I mean, so much can happen. A couple of years ago, my neighbor's nanny saw me on the street and told me something which she was doing. And I don't want to say it publicly because they may listen to the podcast. But the nanny told me something that she was doing that the parents didn't instruct her to do. So it was against their desire, in fact. But the nanny thought it was important to do this thing. And she was doing it and she revealed it to me. And to this day, that nanny doesn't work there anymore. She's long gone and the kids are grown. To this day, I have not shared it with that family or with anyone else. But it does bother me. I did want to share with them as a responsible person, but I didn't want to fire her. And I'm like, this is not my place. What if and this nanny didn't mean anything to me. She was not a close friend, right? So it was a very morally complicated situation. So I'm asking you, shall I tell this family now that, years later, or is it worth it? Because it's, that topic is not relevant anymore.
So I think my answer to that question, and it's my same answer when someone asks the even harder question of, I've cheated on my partner in secret, do I reveal it to them? And the answer in both of these cases, I would say, is talk to someone else who sort of knows the relevant parties and help decide, because this is so hard to figure out on your own. And that's partly what's so hard about secrecy. You're choosing to be alone with this thing, and it's not often easy. It's often difficult to be alone with something, whether it's grappling with something you've done in the past or someone has told you. It's really hard to figure out what to do on your own, but you don't have to. If you talk to a third party that is either that can keep the secret safe or that it won't get back to the other person because of who you're choosing, it's really going to help you think this through. You only have one perspective, but hearing other people's perspectives can really help push you to the right path forward.
Yeah. I don't know. When people tell me this is a secret, I'm very careful. I don't want to reveal it or share with my best friend, even though it's so tempting to gossip about a common friend who just told you a secret. It's very tempting to do that, but it's hard to keep other people's secrets. And you're right. You have to choose your person carefully. This is why I'm even tempted to think sharing with a stranger, because there are no ties, they can't go to your friend circle. And, you saw them on a train or on a plane somewhere, you just shared. But again, that might be my podcast listener someday, or they may know someone. Like, I'm always worried because the world is a circle. You end up finding connections, so you have to be, I think, very careful who you say, what you say, and what you share. And of course, by sharing with someone, you're putting them under that burden too of carrying your secrets. So that's another level of responsibility, right? It's a really fascinating topic. I'm widely interested in your research, and I hope you get to do more interesting studies and reveal more about secret lives of secrets. But as parting words, what is your final message? What do we need to know about secrets? Anything you want to say to the listener, or just as parting words?
I'm going to follow this last thought you were just talking about, which is, if you have a secret that you're struggling with, you don't have to reveal it to the person you're keeping it from. But if you're really stuck on the thought and don't know what to do, this is really a signal that you just need to talk to someone about it. And it can be anyone, whoever is the right person, they're out there. And a world of difference a conversation can make. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Michael Slepian, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was great. That concludes my conversation with Michael Slepian, my dear listener, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. What do you think? How many secrets do you have? When I first heard about Michael's book and his research on secrets, and that the average person has 13 secrets, I was like, there's no way I have 13 secrets. And then I went through the list, and lo and behold, I did have quite a few secrets of my own. It was pretty eye-opening. And there are some secrets that I haven't told anyone. This was such a fun conversation. And the topic of secrets, I think, is very fascinating. So I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways from this episode. And of course, if you want to share a secret with me, I will keep it. No, wait. It has psychological, physical, and emotional consequences. I'd rather not. Anyways, I always love hearing from you. Get in touch. Send me a note to the email info@authenticparenting.com. Call the number 732-763-2576 and leave a voicemail. And of course, for our international listeners, we have a free tool on the contact page of my website. Go to authenticparenting.com/contact and send me a voice message. If you haven't already, be sure to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's very helpful, and you do it once and it goes towards the entire show, not a specific episode. If you enjoy the podcast, you can become a patron on patreon.com. With a small monthly contribution, you can support your favorite show and get some pretty cool gifts from me and a handwritten note. Plus, you can have exclusive access to me. We have 2 new patrons, Christine and Flavia from Italy. Thank you. I want to give you a shout out for your very generous support. Currently, we have 20 members who together contribute $104 towards our monthly goal of 500. Let's get to 500. You can find the show and follow it wherever podcasts are played. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and elsewhere. And if you want to see what I'm up to in my private life, behind the scenes of podcasting, get some inspirational content on parenting and personal development, follow me on Instagram. My handle is Authentic Parenting Podcast. I recently went to my favorite band Coldplay's concert, which was a dream come true for me. And I shared in my stories some pretty cool videos from my day. Until next week, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. I am Anna Seewald. Thank you so much for listening.